Hi everybody. I thought that I had recorded a whole book haul, and I turned the phone around because I'm using my iPhone because I'm trying to go quick. And lo and behold, guess what? Didn't hit the record button. So I am now recording this book haul again, and it's probably not going to be as good as the first time, maybe better, I don't know, I'm feeling very discouraged. But I guess this is a book haul, and I'm in kind of a weird space right now because I didn't have the time to set up my whole shtick, so this is still kind of a low budget production of the normal, or at least I hope you guys think, high production value. Oh, let's just get to the books. Man, I'm so bummed. I had some good, funny one-liners that I'm not gonna remember. I was very, on point most of the time. All right. Stephen Donaldson, the Thomas Covenant. Is that right? The Last Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, or the second Chronicles. I haven't even read the first Chronicles. I need to get going on these, but these are highly influential books in the genre probably most people know about. Stephen Donaldson is a big name, especially if you are a Malazan reader and follow Stephen Erickson closely. You know this had a huge influence on him. I'm excited to read this. I mentioned that many times. Next, also mentioned many times, Guy Gavriel Kay. I've never read him. Most people start with Tigana, but I haven't been able to find Tigana at a used bookstore, and so I have these two, A Song of Arbonne and The Lions of Al-Rassan. I've actually heard a lot of good things about Lions of Al-Rassan, so I'll probably start there once I actually pick him up, but that'll probably be in a little while. Let me know if you're a big fan of GGK and where I should start, if not Tigana. I know a lot of people are gonna say Tigana. I don't have it. If I find it, I'll pick it up. Speaking of, if I find it, I pick it up. The Dark Tower series, I have not read these at all, and in fact, I don't really have a huge desire to, but there's such a huge presence in the fantasy world. I feel like I'm going to have to pick it up at some point. So I found these, they're like $2 each at the used bookstore, and I was like, I'll pick them up, and they'll sit on my bookshelf for 7 years. Hopefully not, maybe I'll read them. Things I have already read and probably going to read again, some Doom books. Ooh. I'm going to try to reread at least the first trilogy when the book comes out, and so I got these. Also, I love these editions. I think they're cool, and they match the edition that I think Katrina sent me for Christmas. So that works out very well. Speaking of working out very well, my year of short classics continues. This month I'm supposed to be reading something that I have not read yet, but I will. And in November, I'll be reading Candide by Voltaire, and so I bought it. Next, I should throw books. Kate Elliott, Prince of Dogs, I think is the second one. Yeah, volume 2 of Crown of Stars, which is a big epic fantasy that I don't think she's finished yet, but is going to finish in the next couple of years. So I'm imagining I am going to jump on that. I told myself I shouldn't do this. I'm taking off stickers as I record. That is bad YouTube-ing. Prince of Dogs. I forget the name of the first one. I saw my buddy over at Chris Bookish Cauldron review this, and it sounded really, really good because he's like, hey, it's a bunch of really confusing politics. And I was like, that's my shit. The opposite end of confusing politics, the inheritance cycle. I love it. I think for the simple, distilled, great boy to ultimate warrior that needs to save the world classic story, I think Paolini does an amazing job, and I love the first two books, Aragon and then Eldest, which is this one, and then the second two I almost have no memory of, and I remember feeling not grossly disappointed, but a little disappointed. Part of that might have been that I waited so long and between books, so I want to give this a try, kind of just one run through from book to book to book. They're pretty easy to read quickly, and I think especially now that I'm older, I could really plow through them despite their length. So I picked up Eldest, and I'll get Aragon when I see it. I think I bought that and sold it 3 or 4 times, Aragon, but this time I'll get it again and keep it. Plato, the Greek philosopher, I got in this Loeb Classic Library Edition. Cool thing about Loeb's is that they have the Greek manuscript and script itself next to the English translation, It's translation by Harold North Fowler. I really enjoy that because I can read a little bit of ancient Greek, and so it's fun to have that text with me, even just to practice so I don't lose it completely. Next, let's hit some philosophy books, right? Postmodern Theory, Critical Interrogations by Stephen Best and Douglas Kellner. This is not like an introduction for people who are like new to philosophy, but a philosophy student's like good intro to the postmodern broadly movement. It's not really a unified movement if you've followed postmodernism at all, but it's a good starting point. I saw a good deal on it and I got it. 2 other philosophy works, both by Marx and Engels, the Marx and Engels Reader, as well as the classic Communist Manifesto. Already read it. I found a great deal on it. I have not read a lot of the things in the Reader. Also, Capital is in here, which I do have. Oh, it's right here. I do have a copy of the volume 1 of Capital, but this is a kind of abridged and slightly easier to read version. Theology of Liberation by Gustavo Gutierrez. I am excited to read this. It is a seminal text in liberation theology, which is a movement in broader global Christianity that is mostly looked down upon in the United States because it has a lot of revolutionary overtones, and I'm obviously very drawn to that now, so I'm excited to get to read that. Last philosophy/theology work, The Cygnus Unto Death by Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher who's kind of a proto-postmodern before the actual postmodern era. Cygnus Unto Death is one of his most known like small meditations. Excited to give it a try. It's also relatively short, as you can see. It's getting windy, that's why you're hearing stuff probably in the background. We're almost to the end, guys. Sorry that I'm going so fast with this. Like I said, it's my second time going through this. Sean Russell. I have not read the Swan Wars trilogy, which is where most people start, and by most people I think Krish Bogus-Calder is the only one I've seen talk about him, but he speaks very glowingly of him, particularly his prose, and I am a prose whore. Is that a thing that people say? I just love good prose, and so I'm excited to give Sean Russell a read, and hopefully I really like that trilogy and want to read more of his, and I have a standalone novel ready to go. Many people were upset that I threw that book. City of Brass. If you are a regular in the fantasy booktube community, you've heard of this book a lot, by S.A. Chakraborty. I am probably not saying that right. It's a pet peeve of mine that people don't look up names before they say them on their book calls, and I unfortunately am falling into that, my own pet peeve. So if you're sitting there being like, hey, Google the name, you can find out how to say it. I'm there with you. I just literally right now, I have to work in 20 minutes, so I just don't have the time if I want to get this done. So I'm sorry. That is her name. I'm excited to read this because I just finished Master of Jinn by P. Djeli Clark. I loved it. I loved the setting. I loved the setting of that book and the characters, but especially the setting in Cairo in 1912 and the Middle Eastern inspired mythology and magic, like all of that I just fell in love with. So I wanted more of that. That book, unfortunately, Master of Jinn, kind of let me down in the story department, and so I'm hoping that this is going to be a better and more compelling story. I'll end on that one, so we'll start with these. The first 3 books, I know you see just 2, but this is a combination of the first 2 novels in the Long Price Quartet. So the Long Price Shadow and Betrayal is what they're calling this. I've never really seen people do this before, but this is the first 2 books in the Long Price Quartet, A Shadow in Summer and A Betrayal in Winter, but they are combining this into Shadow and Betrayal, which I think is kind of interesting. But I have that, and then on top of that I have The Autumn War. I saw my buddy Alan review these and loved them and the way he described them. So I'm excited to read them. Also, Daniel Abraham is half of James S.A. Corey, the people who do The Expanse, and I love The Expanse. So I thought, I feel pretty good that I'm going to really like that. Finally, let's end on another readathon that I'm a part of, and I need to read this month. Traitors Moon, which is the 3rd book in the Night Runner trilogy, the first trilogy by Lynn Llewellyn happening in the Scala verse, continuing the tale of Alec and Sarah Gale. This is just great, fun fantasy. It's a really interesting world. It's not like Wheel of Time, Lord of the Rings, Name of the Wind epic, but it is just like fun fantasy with still a very, very good and interesting world. So really for some fun fantasy, you can't do better than Lynn Fueling. I just really like her, and with odd drops of horror as well, which I'm not a huge horror fan normally, but the imagery in there I think is really, really fascinating. So there we go. That's my book haul for the second time around. I am hoping to all the gods and angels that when I turn this phone around, I actually recorded this time, and I'm dreading if it's not, because I probably will just die of sadness. But if I don't die of sadness, please like and subscribe this video, because if I die of sadness, you won't be watching this. So this is all mute anyway. Moot, not mute. Boy, I'm losing it. Anyway, first in, last out.